Hey y'all, welcome back for another Lorcana chat. Had a whole bunch of things floating around in my head over the last week. I'm excited to get to recording again. Yeah, as I'm sure you've noticed, the introduction has changed a little bit. I'm still trying to figure out, my style, what works, and I'm trying to be a little bit more, excited and animated this time. Watching over the last couple of videos or my first two, I was like, man, I am boring. So hopefully, and I keep looking at my microphone over here, I'm figuring it out, y'all. Hopefully, you'll enjoy this one. What we have to talk about. Our discussion for today is going to be what does challenging mean in Lorcana. We've got a couple of cards here on the screen. They all talk about challenging. We're going to discuss, what we can glean about the combat system from the text on these cards. Now, first off, I'm just going to go through the cards, read what they have to say. Then we'll talk about, what I think they mean, how it's going to impact the game, and how some of these abilities are gonna be good or bad in the game. We'll talk about more once we get into our card breakdowns a little bit later on. So first off, we have Cruella. So her ability, You'll Be Sorry, states that when this character is challenged and banished, you may return chosen character to their player's hand. Okay, cool, sounds like fun. Next up, Mickey has Evasive, which is a looks like it's a, what are they called? Like a regular old keyword ability. So only characters with evasive can challenge this character. Okay, so could be like flying in Magic, could be something different. Depends on how this all fleshes out. Next up, we have Captain Hook. So he has Challenger +2, which states when challenging, this character gets +2 power, or whatever we are calling this particular stat. Now, Robin Hood, the text that is important here, is his ability Good Shot. So it says that during your turn, this character has evasive. They can challenge characters with evasive, and that wording is pretty important. What have we learned? Well, first off, there are two combat states. First off, there's challenged, which we've learned from Cruella, and there's challenging, which we've learned from Captain Hook. So the way that sounds is that challenged is, if you are being challenged, and challenging is if you're the one that is doing the challenging. Well, what does that mean? So if we look at Robin Hood, and the way that we look at his ability, the way it states is during your turn, this character has evasive. So he gains evasive on your turn, which is important because that means it's not going to be active during your opponent's turn. And that's why it states they can challenge characters with evasive. That would mean that when Captain Hook is challenging, he's on your turn and he is attacking, quote unquote, he would gain +2 to the power. Makes sense. The other thing that means, and what I think that we can glean from this information, based off of how evasive is worded on Mickey, is that only characters with evasive can challenge this character, is that the challenger chooses their target, which I know is something that has been discussed, in the game and exactly how combat works. And this is where I think that the idea that the challenger or the attacker chooses their target is coming from, because I can't imagine a way that these two abilities interact with each other that is not the case, because otherwise Good Shot is just kind of useless. If Robin Hood cannot choose who he is attacking, then why does it matter that he can challenge characters with evasive? That would just open up the ability for evasive characters to block him when that wasn't the case, which wouldn't make sense. So it would seem that evasive is actually a defensive ability that stops a character from being able to target you. And then Good Shot is an ability that allows you to target evasive characters. So it's not quite as good, because evasive characters can both target evasive characters and get that defensive bonus, whereas Robin Hood doesn't get the defensive bonus. But he also has his little Feed the Poor ability. So it would seem that the devs over at Ravensburger decided that a conditional draw is equivalent in power to the defensive half of evasive. Whether that's actually the case or not, I don't know. We'll find out once we have more cards and we see if there's any fun combos that Robin Hood can work out. But I do believe that having an answer to evasive is definitely going to be important in decks going forward. And we'll talk more about that once we get to the Mickey and the Robin breakdowns. One thing I'm definitely interested in hearing y'all's ideas about is, do you agree with this assessment? Is this something that, makes sense? Am I way off base? Am I missing something? So please comment if you do have any thoughts on what challenging is, how these cards are interacting, and what makes sense to y'all. One thing that we're still definitely not sure about is, assuming that the challenger does indeed choose their target, then we don't know the conditions for choosing that target. Now, that's where I think Elsa comes in. Elsa's freeze allows her to exert herself in order to exert another chosen opposing character. So, unless in this game, exertion abilities or tapping abilities happen at instant speed, which means you can activate them on your opponent's turn, which would be amazing for this card. I don't know about the overall, gameplay and how that would work out, but if that was the case, this card would be way better. But assuming that that is not the case and it operates at quote unquote sorcery speed from Magic, and you can only use it on your turn, then I imagine that in order to challenge another character, that's the word I'm looking for, that the character has to be exerted. That's where Elsa can come in, where she can choose to exert a character that your opponent might not want you to be able to challenge, might not want you to be able to kill, and then you can exert it and then take it out. That is an assumption that I am making. Just like all of these, gameplay talks, unless it's specifically about things that we absolutely know. In my mind, this makes sense. And so I want to see if y'all think it makes sense and if y'all agree and how y'all think this is going to impact the gameplay as a whole. I think it's going to be fairly Digimon esque, but I think it might. The way this is working out, I don't think we're attacking the opposing player, which means we're just interacting with the characters. And that's where like the quest system is going to come in, where we're actually trying to stop the opponent from achieving their quest rather than impact the opponent directly while we achieve ours. So yeah, I don't really know exactly what's happening here and what's going to go on, how it's all going to play out, but I think this is how the combat system is going to work. I think that you're going to be issuing challenges as the active player. You're going to choose who your target is, and they are going to be challenged. From there, things are going to happen. However, the combat works, like we talked about in my second video, technically, but my first real video. Though what we don't know is exactly how the combat works. Whether it's you break the defense and they die immediately, or if there's a health tracking system or something of that nature. So I'm excited to find out more, and maybe I'm way off base, but we'll see. I hope I did a good job, explaining like these interactions. Like challenged here, when this character is challenged and banished, you may return chosen character to their player's hand, which means that there's something that identifies it as being challenged. Versus when this one is challenging, this character gets +2. So if challenging was, the same thing, if any character in combat was considered challenging or challenged, then there'd be no reason to have two separate words. So it would just say, for Cruella, it would just say when this character is challenging and banished instead of challenged. Or Captain Hook, same thing. But because there are two separate words, it indicates that, you have your attacker and you have your blocker, basically. But in this case, instead of a blocker, it's the person being attacked. So I don't know how that works in, say, Digimon. I don't know exactly what the terms are, but I know that in Digimon, you attack other Digimon and they die. In other games, I know you don't. So Magic, for example, you cannot attack other creatures. You only attack the player, then it's up to the defending player to block them. And I know that's the case in things like Runeterra and some other things. But Runeterra has some interesting stuff in terms of vulnerable as well as the challenger keyword that allows them to choose their blockers and things of that nature. Moving on. And then as far as the Robin Hood and Mickey interaction goes, so Evasive says only characters with Evasive can challenge this character. So if challenge was, this worked like flying, it'd be only characters with Evasive can block this character. But then Robin Hood wouldn't make any sense because you're not blocking people on your turn. Or so I assume. There could be some kind of dual combat mechanic going on that would be really interesting, and I'd be missing out on. Maybe both characters can challenge and be challenged on both characters' combat phase, which could be kind of crazy. So if that is the case, then maybe I'm way off base, and that's a whole different thing. But with the fact that Robin Hood specifically says that they can challenge characters with evasive on your turn, it leads me to believe that the active player's characters are challenging specific characters to combat. And if a character does not have evasive or something to the effect of good shot that gives them evasive for the turn, then Mickey would not be able to be targeted. That means Mickey could get free swings, and you can't really do anything about it unless you have either a kill card or some other way of, dealing with Mickey or evasive. Let me know what y'all think. I'd love to see some discussion in the comments. Usual YouTuber, like, subscribe, work the algorithm, help me get monetized. Yay! Hopefully one day. I just want the channel to pay for some packs of cards, man. That's it. Yeah, so until next time, I will catch y'all again. What was my sign off? Something about, glimmers staying shiny and something or other. I don't ink pots full. Yeah, we'll go with that. Keep your ink pots full and your glimmer shiny. All right. Until next time, y'all. Bye.